Hello everybody, welcome back to the 1.0 Exploration series. We're on to Mohgwyn Palace and I'm sure it is very short. On my notes it was literally 1 page. But I certainly don't mind the easier week of editing and such. Of course the next one is going to be the Halig tree, as that is the only area left before Fair Mausoleum. And then of course Ashen Capital is the end. But yeah, let's get into it. Since I was sure some of you might be curious about this, I did go ahead and see if this is still a good farm spot for runes. And here's what I found. The big crow can still be baited off of the ledge from the other side of the map, but it drops 5,000 runes instead of 11k or so, as in post-release. So that drops half of what it normally does in current patch. But the albinauric enemies actually drop about the same amount. Actually, it's slightly more. So if you use the Wave of Gold method, you actually end up with slightly more than you would before. And they should add up over time, so it might actually be more efficient to farm with the albinauric enemies. The bird, honestly, if you got the sword, it doesn't really matter at that point. Going downhill from this little albinauric enemy segment, the loot that's supposed to be a blood rose is poison dart in 1.0. You can still find blood tags in the same spot, but it's called Taker's Thrust. It still has the visual effect, but it doesn't seem to actually steal life. So I guess it's just repeating thrust right now. There's no more flies in this little cave, but we'll discuss that a little bit more later. Keep that in the back of your mind. The Hero's Rune 4 in this tree is a Numen's Rune, and the Hero's Rune 3 is an Antient's Rune 4. So we are getting some newer runes now. Whether they're the equivalent of these said runes, I'm not sure. I'll have to verify at the end of the series. This little loot near this camp that's blood-tainted excrement is actually explosive great bolts. And I also want to mention that a lot of the blood excrement that you'll find as a highlighted item, the one with the blue-white light, aren't there. I didn't find any single one that's a lootable one like that. Only the ones that are on the ground that do respawn. Going into the Crow Hell area, I did still get invaded by the white mask dudes, but they seem to actually stand in place until you approach them instead of chasing you to the ends of the earth. This invader was still using the Blood Misericord, so that could mean that it's still somewhere in the game, or at least these NPCs programmed to have it, but it does have bad bleed buildup, to be honest. It didn't use blood tax at all. One of the later ones used a normal repeating thrust, Ash of War. This first invader dropped the Pauper's Rune, the literal Golden Rune 1 equivalent. The second invader didn't drop anything. And the third one also didn't drop anything. So there's no Surgeon set as far as I can tell. The blood rose here is Poison Stone Clumps. The Nomadic Cookbook is called Perfumer's Cookbook for some reason, but it still seemed to give you the same items. There's this little pathway that has an arterial leaf at the end, but for some reason in 1.0 there's more dogs defending it. That was really strange. There's only like 2 in current patch, and I fought like 5 or 6 in 1.0. It was weird. The Haligdrick Talisman +2 was in this proper spot, to my amazement. We've been missing a lot of those, so I just was surprised to actually see it here. On the pathway to the palace, I didn't see anything different. Those red albinaurics still summon the skeletons and such, so nothing to comment on there. But before that, I'm gonna go back to talk to Gideon and tell him about the Mohgwyn Palace. And it turns out he does still react to you finding it. The only difference I could find is he doubles up on a part of the dialogue.
A hidden treasure known only to me. A secret right known only to me.
According to the Future Press guide, this text changes depending on what info you bring him, so they just left these together by accident, I assume. But in these particular 2, both of these were wrong actually. He still gave the Favre cookbook with the branch though, so still the same loot. Now actually on the way to the Mohgwyn Palace, the Numen's Rune here is an Antient's Rune 1. Just like in Altus Plateau, these bleed blobs don't disappear after death, they just kind of stay here. The blood rose in this corner is replaced by a Salo Ember, or the yellow ember equivalent. I'm not sure why this blood-related area is allergic to blood roses, but alas. Here is the stock for the Mohgwyn Merchant. And as you might have seen, it has unlimited preserving boluses. This was huge. As far as I know, you actually can buy these in post-release. And same goes for the other 2 that are here, the Clarifying and Rejuvenating. But especially the rot ones, that was huge. If I wasn't planning on becoming a 1.0 mule person before, I definitely am now. This is just too good. To my surprise, the Lord's Rune in this little altar is still there as well in 1.0. I did go ahead and finish Varus quest stuff, so I used the Pureblood's Knight's Medal. And it actually doesn't have any particle effects, it just shows the sigil, briefly. The summon sign, and when you invade into the world, it calls White Mask Vare White-Faced Vare. The only difference I could find is that he doesn't use blood tax, he also uses repeating thrust in 1.0. All the dialogue from the fight and after you beat him is the same, but he's the one that drops the Swarm of Flies. So this is how you get it. A little bit icky given that it's a quest line, and especially 1.0 you can miss this because you need to be able to use offline quest lines. But it's fine. Current patch, it's just a pickup. Now going on to Mohg himself. For phase 1, it seemed pretty much identical to the Shunning Grounds fight. The only difference I found then was the missing fireball when he holds in his hand and explodes in front of you, but the explosion does show. Then the heal attack worked the same in general. I had to use my other character to test this, but the blood crystal tier does work the same. It still blocks the 3 knee heal attacks, and it still does a little bit of chip damage. I did notice that if he does kill you, he has an additional small little line at the end of his dialogue.
Nicola is mine and mine alone. For all eternity.
Honestly, this feels more complete to me. I don't know why they removed it, because it doesn't seem like it cut off too early or anything. Because yeah, this doesn't show in current patch, just the first bit. Now for phase 2, the tip of the trident's bleed particle effect does look a little bit different than it does in post-release. But that's really about it. I didn't find any other differences in the fight. He does drop less runes in 1.0, I will say that. But that does seem to be a general trend in a lot of the bosses, which I haven't always paid attention to, but I did notice here. I do want to say though, I don't think I got bled once in this fight. I don't think I came close to even getting bled. And I think in 1.0, bleed buildup is just not as strong. I kind of felt that all throughout exploring this area. I didn't really get bled once, I don't think. Besides the exploding cloud ones, but that's just impatience, really. But given how strong bleed is, it might actually be more balanced. Now real quick before finishing, I did go to the round table and check a few more things. Firstly, Mohgwyn's Sacred Spear doesn't need or scale with Arcane apparently. That's pretty OP. Blood Boon is called Blood Flame of the Dynasty, and it also doesn't need an Arcane, which is interesting. I assume maybe that's the same for the other Blood Flame stuff, and I hadn't noticed until now. And I did talk to Gideon again. Everything was exactly the same. He still gets the law of causality. And yeah, that's the end for the video. Like I said, not many changes in this area, but I thought some of them were pretty interesting. I'm still kind of taken aback by that merchant and the fact that they decided to change things like that you can only craft the preserving bosses, for instance. And I'm certainly gonna buy 699 of those before I patch this version eventually, you know, many months from now. But yeah, given it's a short video, I won't daddle too long. Hope you enjoyed that video. As I mentioned, we are going to be doing Halictree next, but it likely won't be next week. It'll probably be 2 weeks from now. Tears of the Kingdom should have released yesterday as the release of this video, so I might be giving myself some time to just play that for a little while. Just heads up. I will put out another video likely next week that should hopefully be easy to work on and finish before Tears. But as far as Halictree, you should probably expect it 2 weeks from now or so. And again, as I said, depending on how long it is, I might end up doing 2 parts of it, but I don't think it will after more thought, but who knows? We'll see. Yeah, either way, if you're new here, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can watch on a playlist from the other parts. There's a lot to catch up on. We're about to come up to the end here. It's only around 3 or 4 videos left, depending on how we divide Halictree. So it'll be a good time to jump in, especially if you're not a Tears of the Kingdom fan. Yeah, thank you for watching. I hope to see you again.